Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Genesys Cloud Community's Q&A show, the show where we answer your pressing questions in the Genesys Cloud online community. My name is Matt Lawson. I'm your online community manager, and the day has finally arrived. I'm so excited to be talking about WebRTC. This is a topic that was requested a while ago. We've been planning to record on it for a while, and now we're finally here with what's going to be a two-part episode. So thank you for joining for part one of two. Today, what we're going to do is kind of set the foundation. I have Alan joining us. He's a really great speaker, WebRTC genius, and he's going to be explaining a general overview of what WebRTC is, and then we're going to answer some of the questions that came into the community from members just like you. Don't forget, every now and then when I know what episode is coming up, I ask in the community for questions that you have for our experts. Always feel free to join me there and post so that we can give you the answers you crave. That being said, this isn't a long episode, just a foundation for part two, which is going to be really fun because we're going to talk about a new feature that's coming out and get into a more involved process of what it means to set up in our WebRTC and to take it down. So without further ado, let's welcome Alan to the show so we can get started. Alan, thanks for joining us. Hey, Alan, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. To be honest, we've been speaking a little bit over the past couple of weeks to, find a recording time that works. And I've always been so curious how you say your last name. I'm going to take a shot at it from downfield, and I may be wrong. Is it Lantain?
Well, I'm not sure how French people say it, which is probably the correct way to say it, but we just say Lantain.
Lantain. Okay, cool.
Rhymes with canteen. There's a lot of extra letters in there, but that's what we say.
Cool. Well, I'd love, if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself? Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name is Alan Lantain. I'm on the product management team for Genesys Cloud. I've been with the company for around 15 years or so at this point. I specialize in telephony, real-time media, SIP, telco, and anything of that nature. And that includes WebRTC.
Cool. So I know I talked to you a little bit as we started recording. I'm at the beach this week. And one of the things we always like to do when we have a new guest on is we like to ask them a question, just kind of as an icebreaker. So I'm curious, what is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, well, I just got back from Puerto Rico, so currently that's number one.
Oh, cool.
The official answer is anywhere where I can scuba dive and see a variety of sea life. That's where I want to be.
Awesome. Are you still looking for your octopus teacher? I'm not sure if you get that reference or not.
Is that from Nemo?
No, it's a documentary. It's called My Octopus Teacher. It's on Netflix. Check it out. It's about a scuba diver who befriends an octopus. It's really cool.
Oh, okay.
And this is one of those jokes that I'll probably edit out and fire. Well, that's all right.
All right,
cool. Just real quick, I know we have actually an episode that's so large, we've decided that we're going to break it up into two parts. And we kind of wanted this episode to just set the foundation for what comes next, which is going to be a feature release that you all want to talk about. And I think a more thorough discussion around like the setup and takedown process. Today, we just wanted to, like I said, set the stage, do a quick introduction. So to get us started, can you just give a really brief, maybe not too technical overview of what is WebRTC?
Sure. So WebRTC is a standard that browsers or endpoints or whoever can choose to adopt. And the whole point of it is, in the old days, you have SIP endpoints, you have SIP servers, you have all these devices spread out on your network. Originally, some network admin was in charge of all of the network paths between the two, and they could set up exceptions, firewall rules that allow SIP communication, real-time media communication between these devices. But as we've spread out, we have the cloud now, we have people working from home, you have people working from third-party BPOs. These devices are everywhere, and it's not trivial to try to open up communication through them in the traditional sense with ports 50, 60, whatever the common SIP ports are. So WebRTC came along and it changes all that. It lets you probe at the start of each call. It probes all of the possible media candidate paths and finds the best one that it believes is ideal for that call, and connectivity is established over that path.
Wow, that sounds really cool. I'll be honest, I learned about WebRTC kind of getting ready for this call. But I think I like your description of all the others that I tried to read through. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. What do you think? Should we go ahead and start answering some of these questions that came into the community?
Sure.
All right, great. So to get things started, I wanted to remind people this is the community thread that we will be talking about today. So this came up 18 days ago, and I said that we would be doing this episode, and I asked for some additional questions. Robert chimed in. We heard from Vaughn again, who initially requested this topic. Peter had a question, and then we had Kun Jin. And what's great is we're going to have this time now to go through some of these questions that came in. And I'm not going to be reading straight from their post because I think you kind of put them in an order to where they'll grow and play off of each other a little bit better, right? More organically.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. The first question that you wanted to go with is, can WebRTC be used with VDI solutions?
That's right. So VDI is virtual desktop infrastructure. It's a technology that's been available for a very long time, but we're seeing it become a lot more popular as workforces have had to distribute work from home, working from machines that aren't necessarily owned by the organization. They want to be able to control the experience, control access to that, and VDI is being selected to do that. Unfortunately, when you go with a VDI solution, that means you're funneling a lot of real-time audio through those tunnels from the client machine to the VDI host, and that ends up being a pretty poor experience for the real-time audio. You get latency, you get packet loss. So the ideal way to handle that is to get the audio outside of the VDI session. Today you can do that by purchasing a compatible hardware phone, because of course that would be point-to-point audio from that phone to the cloud services. Or coming soon, you can use our WebRTC Media Helper. This software it's essentially a separate client that you use to anchor the media outside the VDI session. This is something that's going beta here very soon and will be GA as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think our next episode is going to be more details on that release specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool, perfect. I'm glad it plays into that question. Let's go ahead and tackle the next one. How do you configure VDI WebRTC helpers?
Well, fortunately, it's pretty easy. You launch the WebRTC Media Helper outside of the VDI session, and that can be on the same machine or a different machine, as long as it meets the minimum specifications for the application. You log in. It's the same login prompt you're used to seeing for Genesys Cloud, and it supports single sign-on, so nothing new there. And then you choose your audio devices, your microphone, your speakers, headset. Once that is launched and logged in, you proceed to your Genesys Cloud application in your VDI environment, and the agent experience is the same. It's completely normal at that point. You go on queue, you handle interactions, you issue wrap-up codes. It works the same. The only difference is that the audio is flowing to the client outside of the VDI solution.
Cool. And you said when you're signing in, that's when you select like what headphones or speakers and mics you're using, and you do that every time you're logging in. Is that right?
Yeah, this will be a startup step.
Oh, okay.
The additional step is you launch the VDI helper outside of the VDI session.
Mm-hmm.
You log in, choose your audio devices. And if you do this on the same computer tomorrow, it's going to remember which devices you've chosen.
Okay.
And it's very likely your authentication token will still be valid. So it's meant to be as unobtrusive as possible, but it is an additional step the agent will have to do.
Cool. I like it because sometimes I have in different headphones or something like that. So it's always good to have that reminder. Let's switch gears just a little bit. What is Sten, capitals all the way, and why do I need Open Sten to Google?
Okay. So Sten is it's a very simple request that allows a piece of software to identify what public IP address it's using. Because typically you have a client, a firewall, and then there's a public IP on the outside of that firewall, and then the internet. the client isn't aware of what that public IP is unless it sends a request to the outside world, pretty much says, hey, what address do you see me talking to you through? And then the response is that public address. Every WebRTC call begins with a media negotiation process called ICE. And ICE must quickly establish the possible route candidates and then select a winning route from among them. Often one or both of the sides of this connection are sitting behind a firewall, and they leverage a NAT to translate between those public and private IP addresses. So like I said, the device behind the firewall is only aware of its own private IP. So it has to ask the outside world and say, what public address do you see me communicating from? So stun is used to identify what addresses need to be used in a variety of the possible network paths for the media flow. Once those addresses are known, ICE can then proceed with determining the best route for the call. And then obviously, since this happens at the start of every call, we can't take a whole lot of time figuring out what's ideal. So it has to happen quickly. So as a result, it's important that your stun responses return quickly. Google provides a geo-capable lookup. So the same address for a stun server will resolve to the nearest stun service to you, no matter where you are in the world. So they're a good fit because the same address can be used and it's always going to return quickly. Currently, the Genesys Cloud client reaches out to Google Stun and an AWS-based Stun. The first one that responds is what we use. Premises edges currently only reach out to Google because when we ship an edge out, we have no idea where a customer is going to choose to implement it. So we need to take advantage of that geo capability. In the near future, we're also going to have Premises Edge reach out to AWS-based Stun, but for now, they only reach out to Google.
Cool, excellent. What does turn do, and how does it affect WebRTC?
Okay. Turn is often used after you've sent out your stun requests and we know what address to be talking to. Turn is used in situations where the devices involved in a WebRTC call are unable to reach each other directly. And this is typically due to one or more firewalls in the path of the call not allowing a direct route. But both devices involved are able to establish an outbound route to the turn server, which then receives audio packets from one connection, sends them down the other. It's a simple packet in, packet out service. It's not inspecting those packets. It's not storing them or recording them or alter them at all.
Cool. I think we're going to be switching to another topic real quick. Can I use WebRTC in any supported browser or on any device?
No. The various browsers and operating systems choose to implement things differently. You can find the WebRTC and Genesys Cloud requirements on the Resource Center. Just look for system requirements and you'll see what browsers and what operating systems are supported.
Cool. Another good introductory question, I'm kind of curious about this. Can you explain the WebRTC data and voice paths for home workers and local edge devices?
Okay, sure. So no matter what, the control plane, for signaling and call control, that's the same for all situations. The client is communicating with a signaling gateway in the cloud. In the Premises Edge case, the Premises Edge is also communicating with those gateways in the cloud. So the control plane always flows through the cloud, no matter your model. Media route selection, as I mentioned earlier, that's negotiated for every call through the ICE process. If a direct route from the client to the Premises Edge device is available, it'll be preferred and it will be used most of the time. If that route is not available, or it responds slowly during ICE, then ICE will choose to use turn. In that call, the media will flow up through the cloud and back down.
Cool, gotcha. What impact does VPN connection have on WebRTC?
Well, it can have an impact. It's determined by the configuration. VPN is a transport, and we follow along with however it's configured. The signaling and control plane traffic always ends up going up to the cloud, both from the edge and both from the client. but the VPN may impact the route that takes. A client, if you configure all of your traffic to traverse the VPN, those packets are going to leave the client's desktop, go up through their ISP to the internet, and then end up coming down through the corporate ISP to the VPN host, and then possibly back up to the cloud, which is an extra hop. So you need to be careful with your VPN configuration and make sure you don't introduce any unnecessary hops. So it's important to consider the audio path when configuring your VPN policies. For example, if cloud media is being used, the optimal path is directly from the WebRTC client up to the cloud media services. So your VPN configuration may want to exclude the Genesys Cloud Media Services IP range to prevent an unnecessarily long route in that case.
Gotcha. Related to edges and all of that, what happens to an at-home worker if their local edges are not accessible?
If the edge itself is not communicating with the cloud, WebRTC is not going to function, and that's the case whether you're a work-at-home employee or you're working on the premises on the same network with that edge. Okay. WebRTC requires both the client and the edge to be in contact with cloud resources.
Cool. Switching gears just a little bit, how does WebRTC on the Communicate app work?
It actually works identically to the WebRTC solution in the Genesys Cloud client. It's the same technology. It's built on the same SDK. So at the media negotiation level and all that, it's identical. The only limitation we have currently is that WebRTC on the mobile app is only available for Communicate. It's not available for ACD agents or contact center agents.
Gotcha. What about diagnostic tools? Are there any available or any that you would recommend for WebRTC?
Yeah, we have troubleshooting and diagnostic tools. They can both be found on the Resource Center by searching for WebRTC troubleshooting or WebRTC diagnostics. And these are cloud-based tools that you access via hyperlink. And then it's pretty straightforward to run them.
Nice. Yeah. And everything on the Resource Center is pretty well documented. So that's great. Okay. So this next question has two parts to it. About the Opus codec and bandwidth usage. This is a variable bitrate codec. In theory, it could use anywhere between 6 kilobytes per second and 510 kilobytes per second. What are the default upper and lower bit rate limits that we allow the Opus codec to use?
Okay. So yeah, it is a variable bitrate codec, but our implementation constrains it to use between 32 and 50 kilobits per second. And that's for a bidirectional stream with both parties generating audio. If a party mutes, we stop sending from that party. And of course, the bandwidth usage drops. Like for an example, a one-way discussion where one party is muted, that would be using between 16 and 25 kilobits a second instead of the 32 to 50.
Cool. And then the second part of that question, can the customer change these bit rate limits to get better audio quality and use less bandwidth or use less bandwidth?
Currently, no. They're not currently configurable within our solution. We chose these settings because they're optimized for cloud communication, internet communication, and communication with the PSTN to provide the best balance of audio quality and bandwidth usage. We'll continue to monitor carrier adoption of what they call HD voice, and then also continue to gauge customer interest on our ideas portal for providing additional configurations. But currently, it's not customer configurable.
Cool, excellent. Ginger's going to be on the Q&A show very soon to talk about the Ideas portal. So yes, everybody, please join those Ideas portals. The Ideas portals, vote for your favorite ideas, and don't forget to submit your own. Some good news, Alan. We're in the final stretch here. Just 2 questions left, and they both play off of this central message, or well, the central introduction. So we began using persistent connection on WebRTC phones to reduce latency when new incoming calls reach an agent. We are seeing improvements. The default timeout is 10 minutes when persistent connection is enabled. We are experimenting with 30, 60, and 4 hours. What's the recommended timeout?
Okay. So first, a little background on what that setting does. This setting is pretty much a timer where you tell the edge side, if no calls have been sent or received from the client in this amount of time, go ahead and drop the connection. That could mean the agent has stepped away from their desk for an extended period of time. It could mean they've closed their laptop and it's gone asleep and we're not hearing from that client. Or it could mean there's some kind of network outage and the audio streams are still attempting to be sent, but they can't be received. So this is an area where we've introduced a lot of optimizations in the past several months. We previously relied 100% on that timeout value when the persistent connection had dropped. Now we have technology in place that's constantly gauging the health of that persistent connection. If the health check indicates the connection is unhealthy, it's terminated immediately, and the next inbound or outbound call to the agent will reestablish it. So we no longer have to wait until a timeout is hit. We have active connection health monitoring that will abort a failed connection and reestablish it immediately. So for the question of what's the recommended timeout, I would say whatever is at a reasonable pause between calls to or from an agent plus a safety margin. So if it's common to have a 14-minute gap between interactions for this agent throughout the day, a value of 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes would be suitable. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds great. The last part of this, we have on-premise edge servers, BYOC premise. Bring your own computer, I guess. Is there an impact on network traffic?
So I'm assuming this is in relation to persistent connection still. If you're using a BYOC premises edge and persistent connection, there is a negligible amount of traffic between interactions, but it's not hogging all the bandwidth with a real-time audio stream in between calls. Okay. Once there's no interaction occurring, we stop sending audio. So the chatter is pretty much some keep alive signaling plane level stuff to let us know that the connection is still active and available. The audio is resumed if a call is placed or received by that agent, and then suspended in between. So actually, there's considerably less traffic than if you were setting up a new call and tearing it down for every interaction. Mm-hmm. And it can actually save you some bandwidth.
Cool. Alan, I really cannot thank you enough for stopping by this week to give us this foundation that we can build upon later this month when you come back to talk about the WebRTC Helper and to answer some more questions that have come in. Until then, what are you going to be working on? Anything fun or exciting?
Oh, we have plenty of fun and exciting things going on. We have the WebRTC Media Helper that's going to beta. We have our hybrid media orgs project that will let you mix premises edges and cloud media within the same org, and let you self-migrate between the two at your leisure with no assistance from Genesys if that's what you want to do. We're also working on Global Media Fabric Phase 2, which will let any org anywhere in the world take advantage of any of the Genesys Cloud media regions anywhere in the world and really craft their audio flow and keep it as local as possible.
Cool. Well, you're a busy man. I don't want to take up any more of your time than is necessary. Thank you again for stopping by. Anything you want to say before we catch up in a couple of weeks?
No, thanks for the opportunity, and I'll be eager to come to the next one.
All right. Awesome. I'll talk to you soon, Alan. Until then, thank you so much. All right. Have a good one. All right. That does it for this week's episode. It was great to have Alan on. I can't wait to have him back for part 2, where we're going to go over that new feature that's coming out and talk about the more evolved process of setting up and taking down WebRTC in your own environment. It should be a lot of fun. I don't know about you. It's about time I get back to the beach and get to see some of my family. So I'm going to be taking off, but I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks when we continue this conversation. All right. Thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you in the community. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. We hope it was helpful and maybe a little bit entertaining. Each week, our host and experts review community discussions and debate what content to discuss, so your voice matters. Did we miss something? Do you have a question for the show? Let us know. Join the conversation at the Genesys online community. As a Genesys customer or partner, you can create an account. Just click the sign in button found on most pages and follow the necessary instructions to create an account. Also, feel free to email us at qashow@genesys.com. We'd love to hear from you. If this is your first episode, welcome. You can view our entire archives. Go to the Helpful Links panel found on most community pages and find the QA Show archive that interests you. We appreciate your support of the show and the community. Cheers!